the next film, a film that you recently watched, Spider-Man.
Literally just last night.
Literally. Spider-Man, Far From Home. Not You've just seen this. It's probably been a little over a year since I've seen it, so I want you to talk to me about it. What's up?
Okay, so Spider-Man Far From Home is probably one of the most overhated superhero movies of all time.
For some reason.
For some reason, people are like, "Oh, it's a bad Spider-Man movie." I really disagree with that.
Me too. Me too.
And it's because a lot of people there's a lot of talk in the movie. So it takes place after Avengers Endgame, which Iron Man died. It's a big deal, and Iron Man was Peter's mentor in Homecoming. So there's a lot of ramifications for that in Peter's story. And so I think a whole lot of the who's going to be the next Iron Man line that's thrown around in the movie, I think people take too literally. Spider-Man is not the next Iron Man. He's the first Spider-Man. It's, I think, a big part of the movie. So really what Peter's arc is in this story is he needs to go from being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to basically being an Avenger. So at the end of Homecoming, Tony welcomes Peter into the Avengers. Peter says, "No, I just want to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." But with the events of Infinity War and Endgame, Peter was kind of thrown into the Avengers due to circumstance. Because he, with great power comes great responsibility. So he kind of had to be an Avenger in that moment. But with Far From Home, he's actively pushing away from that. He helped the Avengers in Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah, sure. But he just wants to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He wants to go on vacation as Peter Parker. He
wants
he's
to
very
be
stressed.
a kid. He wants to be
a kid. But now, when he's in Europe for a school trip, Nick Fury comes in, and there's this whole thing, and Nick Fury's just, "Yeah, we need your help." And there's a great scene in the movie where Peter's like, "Why don't you just call Thor off-world?" And then he says someone else, and it's like, "Oh, Doctor Strange, unavailable, Captain Marvel," and then Samuel Jackson says, "Don't you besmirch her name." So there's a lot to Far From Home that I really like, and the most important thing that I like is how creative it is, because we've never seen Spider-Man outside of New York. Simply just putting him in Europe,
that's
changes
very
the
true.
whole vibe of the
That
movie.
changes the game. That's very true.
It changes the whole vibe.
I never
Him
thought
being
of
on
that.
a school vacation, and then they're just like, "Yeah, fuck it, Spider-Man's in Europe now." Damn. I was like, all right. And I probably should have mentioned this when talking about Homecoming, but I've watched behind the scenes for Spider-Man Homecoming pretty extensively. And in the beginning of their creative process for the MCU Spider-Man, they wrote down a list of pretty much all the things that we've seen in Spider-Man movies before. And they said, we're not going to do any of this. MCU Spider-Man is purposefully different. And people don't like that. People don't like change.
Right.
They don't like different. We want the same old Spider-Man. And I get it, because it does alienate some fans when you go to Homecoming and Far From Home, because it feels so different. But I think Far From Home manages to still pull out a great Spider-Man story while still being different. And it's that European setting that changes the game so much. It's Spider-Man working with Nick Fury and using a villain that we've never seen before with Mysterio.
Yeah, you're right. And first of all, my introduction to Mysterio was Spider-Man 2 on the PS2.
Same.
And I love Mysterio as a character.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal's version of Mysterio is actually really commendable. And there's points here where there are genuine stakes, which is something I can't really say about Homecoming. I was never convinced that Spider-Man was going to die, that someone was going to die that Spider-Man loved. In Homecoming, none of those stakes were there. And Far From Home, there definitely weren't as many stakes as a Sam Raimi trilogy or whatever, but
No.
they were still there from time to time, and you felt it. The movie made you feel what you needed to feel, and a lot of films can't do that. So that's a plus to Far From Home. All right, very much so. I do remember the spectacle of the fights being really fucking cool too. He's fighting these like elemental monsters, So that's a plus, very much so.
So the biggest strength that Far From Home has for me is Mysterio. Mysterio is the best part of the movie
because he's a manipulator
first and foremost.
in multiple
He's a manipulator.
ways. Yes.
Yep. So what I love about this version of Mysterio is that, in the world of the MCU with all these superheroes around, Mysterio has the bright idea of he basically wants to be seen as a superhero, but he's not. And so his whole plan is that he manipulates people into thinking that he's this savior from another dimension, and really he's just some low-level tech guy that used to work for Tony Stark, and he's not impressive at all.
Fucking tech support.
Yeah, basically. And so he uses this holographic technology to create these illusions of elementals, and they use weaponized drones to make the illusions have real impact.
Mm-hmm.
So like real like property damage and all that stuff to make it look as real as possible. And so I think that just the idea of Mysterio pretending to be a hero works so well. And I remember in the marketing for this movie, Marvel was really adamant about, we're changing Mysterio for the MCU. We want to present him as a superhero. And in all the trailers, there's nothing in the marketing about Mysterio being a villain.
Yeah.
And it's so good because the illusion goes outside of the movie, it's even in the fucking marketing.
If you don't know Mysterio's character, this film has a good way of kind of setting it up to where actually he's a villain. He manipulated Peter into giving him that chip. Peter tried to give away that responsibility, but he didn't vet the person he gave it away to enough. That shows how badly he doesn't want to be that person. So once again, Mysterio's character is really cool. His manipulation of Peter Parker, including that finale scene, which I think is awesome. Yeah. Just a movie that has more stakes, that has more comedic moments that I think hit better, if I remember correctly. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that for sure. This movie has a lot more comedy. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of the jokes do fall flat, but there are some that they hit harder than in Homecoming.
Right. And, como se dice, the fact that this film was able to balance more in bigger settings with bigger spectacle and have stakes, I mean, fundamentally, I think it has to be better than Homecoming. How do you feel about that?
I would agree with that. But Far From Home does have its flaws, for sure.
Yes. Talk about those.
MJ and Peter... very forced.
Yes, very much
I don't like the relationship of this MJ and Peter. And I get it, right? He's in school. He has a crush on this girl. The thing is, MJ was in Homecoming, and there's nothing there. There's nothing that says, oh, Peter likes MJ. What?
In both ways. Because it's not like MJ was like bullying Peter in the first one, that kind of thing.
No,
right?
yeah.
She was just some edgy kid. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah,
it's
but
as if
like...
they kind of they kind of pivoted. You know what I mean? It felt that.
Yeah, I do like that this version of MJ is smarter, and she figures out Peter's Spider-Man without him ever really saying anything. She just does it all on her own, and it makes sense because in Homecoming she's actively basically watching Peter all the time.
yeah, a little stalkerish. Yeah.
When he was quitting the academic decathlon and. She said something out loud about like, oh, he already quit band and this other team, and then everyone just stares at her and she's like, I'm not a stalker, I'm just very observant. And so I like that in Far From Home they kind of fleshed that out a bit more, where she's like, you're Spider-Man? It's pretty obvious. Like, yeah, he disappears all the time.
One thing I will say,
Spider-Man happens to be there.
Yeah, right. Fuck it. She's always there. Come on. She's real dirt. She's real like como se dice? She's real awkward about it, but it makes her more relatable. Which is one thing I do want to add. I like Mary Jane's Zendaya's interpretation of Mary Jane. I like this version of her. She's definitely good. And while you don't see the chemistry initially, you do see it later on in a movie like No Way Home. You do see it. You do see that they care about each other. That being said, if I had a preference, it'd have to be Kirsten Dunst's character. But I think that's biased more than anything. I do think that, but also I do want to add that their relationship and the lead up to their relationship is a lot better. All right? Between Peter and Mary Jane, their build up to their relationship to like, oh, we're best friends in high school, we're doing this, and eventually we start dating, and it's a lot more like fluttery butterflies and like a romantic love story.
You're talking about in Toby's?
In Toby's, yes, in Toby's.
Now, I was going to say.
Now, in the new trilogy, in the Far From Home trilogy, it's not. It does feel forced initially, but then you see that there is some decent chemistry. But that's the thing, is that there's more to criticize than the romantic relationship that was in the Raimi trilogy. At least initially. Let's not talk about 3 too much. But if I had a preference, I do prefer the relationship between Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane than Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Zendaya's Mary Jane. But it's still not bad at all. It's definitely got some high points to it, so I'll give them that.
Hmm. Another thing that stands out about Far From Home, not in a negative way, this is positive.
Mhm.
The music fucking bangs. The score is just really fucking good for some reason, and I don't know what it is, but on this most recent rewatch, that's what stuck out to me the most, and particularly going back to Mysterio. In the beginning, Mysterio's theme sounds like a superhero theme, but towards the end of the movie, when they play Mysterio's theme, it's like the same notes but lower, and so it kind of has like a more like villainous tone to it by the end of the movie. And dude, that transition is just fucking cool.
Yes.
Where he starts off as a superhero, and then by the end, you're like, oh shit, this theme is scary.
Yeah, I mean, como se dice, I remember that nightmare sequence that Peter had with Mysterio. Like moments like that, you don't see often. That's like it was like an homage to Spider-Man 1 horror with him and Green Goblin. You know what I mean? Like it was there, and it didn't make you fear Mysterio, but it made Mysterio seem stronger than he actually was, which is the whole point of his character, which I love.
Yeah.
You know. So,
and he uses Peter's words against him for that too, for the like the holographic images. He's like, Peter tells him that he wants to take MJ to the top of the Eiffel Tower and tell her how he feels. And then when you go through that whole illusion thing, there's the illusion where Peter goes through the door, and then he's on top of the Empire State Building, and Mysterio's holding MJ off the edge, and he fucking drops her, and it's like, holy shit!
Damn.
he's like he's using his own words against him and building all these hallucinations.
And then he hit that floor mad hard.
He did, yeah. And then, you know, there's a lot of things that hit hard. It's like, maybe if you were better, Tony would still be alive.
Yeah.
Uses Iron Man's death against him. Mysterio just took all the gloves off.
He was like, really good visuals to accompany
now.
that. Some really good visuals to accompany that. Like that skeleton with the fucking bugs in it and shit when the suit opens up. You know, just...
Yeah.
I'd have to tell you right now that I can't believe there's people who actually hate this film. You know what I mean? Like, why is there hate around this film? I could see you thinking, oh, it's kind of pointless. Oh, it's not as good. That's okay, sure, but hate? Really? You think it's bad? It's not a bad film at all. Absolutely not.
I could understand hating the teen comedy tone and style that's present in this movie. That was in Homecoming, but this movie continues that trend. But this is like one of the most creative, if not the most creative Spider-Man movie we've gotten.
At this point,
you have Sandman has like a little cameo as one of the elementals. Hydro Man, which is the big water, is basically Water Sandman, as another one of the elementals. And so like they use those two classic Spider-Man villains as holographic images for Mysterio. And it's just cool. It's Spider-Man in Europe. He makes his own suit. He has the red and black one, which is something we hadn't seen at the time.
Yes.
And it's just a really fun movie.
It's a fun movie with some really good spectacle moments. It's got some decent comedy in it. It's got a great setting. And it also has a really cool, charismatic villain with some cameos from some characters that we already like Nick Fury. You know, once again, there's not a lot to hate about this film. You could say that it's infuriating that it didn't do more, sure. But you can't say that what's here is bad. Just like how you can't say that what's here in Homecoming is bad. You wish it could do more. Sure.
Yeah.
But you can't say it's a bad film because it's not. What's here, they succeeded in executing. That's what it is.
And if you want a superhero movie that has balls, that end credit scene
balls
blew my mind.
Balls! J. Jonah Jameson. What?
Yeah. First of all, the introduction of bringing back J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson already had all the fans on the floor, right?
Yeah.
We were all nutting in our chairs.
Yeah.
But then you immediately follow that up with a video from Mysterio saying Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker, and then he shows a picture of Peter. What the fuck?
What the fuck? Yeah.
That's literally what Peter says, what the f... And then it just cuts off.
Oh, man. You gotta love it. Like I said, there could have been more, sure. In comparison to the other films, fair enough. But what's here is pretty goddamn great. I don't understand how you could hate a film like Far From Home. What I see there is just sheep following the herd. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
I got another negative, though, that I just remembered.
Yes?
Aunt May knows Peter Spider-Man in this, and it's just, like, out there. I don't really like it.
Yeah, because like there was initial reactions like, what the fuck? in Homecoming.
Yeah.
And then that's it. There was no like, oh, why are you putting yourself in danger? I forbid it. Something like that, right?
No,
she never had
actively
that.
supports him.
She's just okay with
Spider-Man.
it. It's like, and I understand that, like, Aunt May's kind of like a background character that's meant for comedic purposes, which kind of dampens her death in the sequel. But still, what's here? We're gonna say you said, but even with that being said, she's not a bad Aunt May. It's just wish there was more of that. But that's the thing. That's the tone of the film. It's just kind of like go, go, go.
Yeah, and she's not really the wise woman that we've had previously.
Which
she's very
I don't like, to
comedic.
be honest. Which I don't like. Which I don't mind the comedic vibe, but if I had to choose, like the other Aunt May is way better in my mind. Both of them are way better in my mind than this one. This Aunt May's hot and funny. Oh.
And I love Marissa Tomei. She's great.
She pulls her character well. Yeah.
I've only really seen her in comedies, and I think she really fits the tone and style that this movie's going for. It's just that when you look at the character of Spider-Man, and then you have an Aunt May so nonchalant like this, it feels wrong.
It does. It very much does, because it's like everything is leaning towards comedic. Everything's leaning towards passive. And there's no, like, weight kind of holding Peter back in any sense, except himself sometimes, but that's it.
Yeah.
I
will say she has a great line, though, at the end when she picks him up from the airport, and she's like, "Where's your luggage?" "Oh, right, they got blown up." she just, like, moves on.
Once again, how can you hate this film? I don't get it. You can prefer others, but hate? That makes no sense.
It's not bad at all. It's far from bad. That's what they should call it, Spider-Man.
Far from bad. It makes there you go.
It's far from bad.
Yeah, I got it. And to be honest, I think I prefer it over Homecoming. How do you feel?
I would agree with that. I agree.
Okay. So
yeah, I think I would put Spider-Man Far From Home in A tier.
Oh no, I don't think so. I disagree with that.
You don't think it's A tier?
I don't think it's A tier because I don't think it's better than The Amazing Spider-Man.
Really?
I don't think so. No. Because the thing with The Amazing Spider-Man, once again, is that it had more variables. And you could say that it's cut up more, but I think that the stronger moments of this film are better than the stronger moments in Far From Home. I think so.
Fair.
So I'd say it's either... The thing is, right, is you do have a good point when it comes to Far From Home, and that there's a lot more positive than negative, and with Amazing Spider-Man, for me, it's sort of a mixed bag.
I think it's with The Amazing Spider-Man is that the execution comes off as kind of mediocre at times. It's just like a mid-movie. Whereas Far From Home, I think, it feels like a coherent, this is a movie that they wanted to make. They had fun making.
Right.
Mysterio is a standout villain for me out of all the Spider-Man movies. All the live-action ones.
As objective worth, just like how I did with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 here rather than here, I think it's better to put this above The Amazing Spider-Man. Yes, you're correct. As objective worth. And if I was to be subjective, I'd put it here. But if I thought a fair compromise between you and me, I think A does make a lot of sense. So, A tier, that's where I put it. Final verdict, 8 out of 10. I'd give it an 8.
Solid.
I think it's better than Homecoming. So, there you go.
This is a pretty good tier list so far.
How do you feel about the... yeah, I agree. How do you feel 1 through 10 on Far From Home?
What did I give it, actually? I'm going to look.
Oh, yeah, he has the letterbox, right?
Yeah. I'm a letterboxd user. I'm a film nerd.
This man.
So on this particular watch, and I think it was just because of the theater experience, I gave it a 9 out of 10. But my scores on Letterboxd are not really movie quality. It's just how I felt coming out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's how I felt coming out of it, and I felt I had a 9 out of 10 experience watching it.
So I think
objectively though, it might be an 8.
Like maybe rewatch at home. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd say
I think objectively 8 out of 10.
I think A tier makes a lot of sense. So there you go.
Yeah.